You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a historical, chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss cases from each year starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
We have made it to Thanksgiving week.
Whoop, whoop. Turkey, turkey, turkey.
That's exciting.
Eat
So
it
I have
up.
to ask.
Yes.
Turkey or ham?
I prefer ham.
Me too.
Now,
I knew we were friends.
Yes. We always have both. Mother makes a good turkey.
Turkey and ham, but what about duck? That has become our new Thanksgiving thing. My boyfriend makes duck and he makes it really, really well. And so our very, very, very first Thanksgiving together, it was just me and him, and he made duck for Thanksgiving. It was quite delicious.
I need him to make a turducken and let me try it.
That's interesting. I'll have to see what he says. Okay, so you're ham over turkey. I am too. I like ham better than turkey. Yeah. I usually, if it's just a small group, like going to be at the house, I'll only make a ham.
Yeah. My sister would boycott because she doesn't like ham.
That's fine. She's weird.
She's not invited.
I mean, it's just how it is. You don't have to eat then.
Right.
Dressing or stuffing?
Dressing.
Okay.
I mean, I like stuffing, but dressing.
Dressing. Homemade cranberry sauce or jarred or like canned cranberries?
Either one. I don't like cranberry sauce.
Oh, that's true. Well,
no, I like cranberry.
The answer is stuff. Always canned. Because
I don't like jelly-like stuff.
See, but I like it with my dressing.
I don't.
Delicious.
I don't like jelly-like stuff. Like Jell-O. I'm not a fan.
That's true.
It's a texture thing. So I don't like either.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the texture thing. So I can't do it. I can't do either one of those. I'm sorry.
Pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie?
Pumpkin.
I'm gonna give you a hot take. They taste exactly the same. They taste so similar.
Very similar.
It's not funny.
Very similar. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. They are very, very similar. There are differences.
So, pumpkin pie or pecan pie?
Pumpkin.
Okay. Interesting.
I still like both, but I would prefer pumpkin.
Interesting.
If given a choice. Like pumpkin pie cheesecake.
Okay, well there's that.
But yeah, pumpkin. Because I like the savory. And pecan pie is more sweet, and I like savory.
That's true. That's true.
I'm a savory girl.
I make these like sweet potato. They're called sweet potato dumplings, but they're not. And it's halves. Like you can buy them in the freezer section where it's like pieces of sweet potato that's like round, and you cut them in half and wrap them in croissants and put them in a pan, and then you like make this like cinnamony, sugary like syrup almost, and you pour it over all of it and you cook it, and they're almost like individual sweet potato pies.
Yeah.
And they're like, but the sweet potatoes folded into the croissant. It's
I'd eat it.
It's really, really good.
I'd eat that.
Green bean casserole or hash brown casserole?
I don't do green bean casserole ever, so hash brown all the way.
My boyfriend has learned the hard way that because he cooks and he's very much into, he doesn't like things out of cans. He's very
I don't do green beans out of cans, period.
But he has figured out to just trust me that canned green beans are best with green bean casserole because we made it both ways before. We made it with fresh green beans. Like I went the whole 9 yards and made them with fresh green beans, like did everything, even made the like cream of mushroom. Like I didn't use nothing. And then I made that for him and then made him green bean casserole, like the normal one time. And he was like, okay, this is a lot better.
Well, I don't do green bean casserole. I will eat green beans if they are fresh green beans and they're like blanched.
That's true.
Or just lightly done and they still have a
blanched
snap to them.
Blanched are good.
If they have been in a can, I am not eating them.
My boyfriend makes really good green beans. He's figured out their miso green beans. They're really good. But anyways, they're absolutely delicious. Okay, so then the last, I got two more for you.
Okay.
dinner rolls or Hawaiian rolls?
Depends on the meal.
Thanksgiving. I'm going dinner roll.
Yeah.
I'm going dinner roll.
Dinner roll.
Because then I can make a sandwich later.
But ham is really good on a Hawaiian roll.
Ham is good on a Hawaiian roll.
Leftovers Hawaiian during the meal dinner.
Last question.
Yes, you can come to my family's Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, I already knew that. But if you could only choose... Oh, actually, 2 more questions. If you could only choose one, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or the Thanksgiving Day Dog Show.
Parade.
Interesting.
The dog show.
I couldn't choose. I like the dog show though.
I do like the dog
show.
I do love the dog show. I do like it, but it's the parade is varied in what all you see. You know, at the dog show is
the dog show comes on after the parade.
Correct.
So I can watch both.
Yeah.
But yes, I do quite enjoy it. Okay. And no, officially, last question.
Officially, are you
officially,
sure?
Yes.
Think about it.
For right now.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Black Friday shopping, yes or no? And Thursday, Black Friday shopping, yes or no?
I used to do Black Friday shopping when it was just Black Friday and you had to get up early and go.
Mm-hmm.
No longer Black Friday shopping because it is not Black Friday anymore. Thanksgiving is a day to be with your family. No, you should not be in the store on Thanksgiving.
I'm dead inside.
We already knew that.
I like the whole, I actually, so I never liked Black Friday shopping when you had to get up early and go Black Friday shopping.
And see, it was exciting and fun for me. And there have been shootings in our local mall.
Well, that's true. But
Black Friday. So
I will say Target does the best Black Friday shopping.
Target's
experience is by far the best.
And that was where we would go. We would line up to go there.
But I will say the experience of shopping. So this is my hot take. I'm all for Thanksgiving shopping. First of all, Thanksgiving's a commercialized holiday anyways. We don't have to go into the entire history of Thanksgiving. It's not great. But it's just, anyways, we don't even celebrate it for what it's meant to be celebrated for in the first place. It's a whole farce. Anyways, I personally like, if I am spending time with people, the extension of Thanksgiving to nap time, to waking up, looking through the papers, and then going
and
shopping.
See, that was what we did, and it was so fun. Like we would make.
But we go that night. Like you get done, you go, you go do your Black Friday shopping. It's a good time.
Unless you have more than one place to go on Thanksgiving.
Oh, see, yeah, no, I don't.
That's my life. I have, which I am so very thankful that I have 2 families.
True.
To celebrate with. I mean, you know, I go to my family, my side, and then I go to my husband's side, and it's great. You know, we have 2 families that we get to celebrate with, and which is wonderful. But I guess that's another reason. You know, there's not enough time in that day because I spend time with all of my family.
For me and my boyfriend, my family is here, which I have very small, very, very small family, is here.
I do not.
His is Atlanta. So like there's no possible way we could ever do 2 in a day. But I did lie. I do have one more question.
See?
I know. I didn't think of this one though.
And a lie?
I know. I didn't think about this until we were talking about the other though. Do you, decorating for Christmas before Thanksgiving, yes or no?
No. Christmas music? Yes. Christmas decorating? No.
I'll have to figure out what I'm doing. I sometimes, depending on when Ellie's with me, we might decorate the weekend before Thanksgiving. But that's because we're not here that week. So it doesn't really matter. So we'll see. I'm not sure yet, though.
Well, we were talking about this in ceramics. I do ceramics on Saturdays, guys.
No one is shocked.
I'm pretty talented. Kayla has some of my pretties that I have made for her, and she loves them.
I do.
They make her happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm staring at her. So
they're behind me right now.
And yeah, she does have 2 of them that are going to be on display year round.
Ellie likes to move them around. She likes to move them around to where they're hiding in different places. It's funny.
Gonna have to make her own ghosts, I guess. I don't know.
She loves it.
But anyway, we were talking about that at ceramics yesterday, and some of them were like, "Well, I say put up your tree whenever you want to." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care when you do it." Now, for me,
yeah,
I'm an after Thanksgiving person, but it's your house. Do whatever you want.
I mean, I like having the extra time to not have to put everything up because my stuff will be down. It does not stay up past January 1. I think that's bad luck. So it will, because you're carrying something from the previous year into the new one. I do not like it will be down. Like it might be down by Christmas Day night. Like I don't, my stuff comes down
because I go everywhere on Christmas Day.
Well, see, mine is like I've now experienced the Christmas. And now I'm done. Like that's me. Like I'm like, okay, we're done.
But we had that discussion of you take so long to put it all out, so you want to enjoy it. So and
so that's kind of like why I'm like, I could see keeping it up. Like I don't know. So yeah, interesting times. It's good to know that you're on Team Ham though.
Oh gosh, yes. Hammy. Anyway, and
obviously
some people like they celebrate because, people have more than one family to do Christmas and stuff with. They celebrate Christmas at Thanksgiving. Some people do that.
Yeah.
Like
I've had
I know more than one family that they have their Christmas celebration on Thanksgiving because, divorce or just,
big families.
Children. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, well, then, you need to put up your Christmas because that's when you're going to do your Christmas.
Exactly.
So I mean.
Exactly. My boyfriend's niece, his youngest niece, her birthday is Christmas Eve.
My brother's due date was Christmas Eve.
It's a lot.
But he was born on New Year's Eve.
Well, we will. Now we've had our Thanksgiving talk.
Now you all know all of our secrets.
And if you want to go to our Thanksgiving episode from last year, you can hear all of the ways to avoid awkward conversations with your family.
There you go. I have a question for you.
Oh, okay. My, how the turntables have turned.
Other than Halloween. Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving. I don't like the stress of having to buy people gifts.
I was going to say the commercialized holiday is your favorite holiday.
Well, I like Thanksgiving because there's nothing to give to people. Like there's no pressure. Like, yes, there's pressure, like to make food and stuff, but you're spending time with. Now, right. I don't hold any bearing on Thanksgiving Day as like some like holy grail of a day where you can't do anything else. Like,
let's find a day to get together.
Yeah, like let's have. If the stores want to be closed, let them be closed. Like whatever, that's fine. But I don't hold Thanksgiving like up to this whole, like a lot of people have this like high standard. Like a lot of people have boycotted Black Friday shopping because it starts on Thursday. And to me, I'm like, but why does it matter? Like Thanksgiving's not like, it's not a religious holiday. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not one of those days. Yeah, but it's like, right. But I mean, some people are so against it because they're like, it's not supposed to start on Thanksgiving. This is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Thanksgiving is not, I like it because it is literally just a day to spend time with people and eat. Like that's it. Yeah. And watch a parade and watch a dog show. And like, what better else could there be than just eating and watching
spending time with the people that you love.
Broadway tunes in front of Macy's. Like
I want to go to the parade one year.
You don't.
I want to go.
You don't.
Do. I want to be.
I know of different people who have gone. You do not.
I want to
go.
be a bougie parade goer. Like I want to be in one. Oh,
if you want to pay the money, you can pay the money. But it's. I know of a few people who have gone and have said no.
I want to be a bougie parade goer.
There's someone you can ask about that they were in it. That you can ask them.
I know some people that have been in it. That's different than.
Yeah. So, anywho.
Okay. So, there you go.
Good times. So on to our case for this week. There's a murder. There's been a murder in Savannah. The Office, for those who don't know. Our sources for this week, we have medium.com. Always a really good place to find articles. We have...
It's not too hot, not too cold.
No, it's just medium. Dayton in Manhattan. We did talk about this in one of our other episodes where we talked about Bond Street. And Dayton in Manhattan's pretty interesting when it talks about the history of the places, the actual buildings that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting. And then Murder by Gaslight. So always the ever formidable Murder by Gaslight. Our events, we are now to 1858. Our events in this year, February 21st, a name that you love, Edwin.
I do love that name.
Edwin T. Holmes installed the first electric burglar alarm in Boston. March 9th, Albert Potts patented the street mailbox in Philadelphia. March 14th, Ellen G. White received a vision while attending a funeral service in Lovett's Grove near Bowling Green, Ohio. She would go on to help form the Seventh-day Adventist Church. March 23rd, E.A. Gardner patented the streetcar in Philadelphia.
Was it named Desire?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a name on it. March 30th, the pencil with attached eraser was patented by Hyman L. Lipham.
And let me just say this.
Actually,
friends.
just kidding. I was scooting past that because it's a very awkward name, but that's it's worse. It's
worse.
Hyman L. Lipman.
There you go.
There we go. That's anyways. April 12th.
Pencils.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are not all made the same.
No, Ticonderoga.
Thank you. For teachers everywhere. Guys, I know that those cute little pencils with
those
all
erasers
the designs on them are so cute. Erasers are garbage. They make black smears. They get hard really quick.
I had this whole conversation.
Make a whole issue.
I had this whole conversation with my daughter the other day because we were doing some math homework. By the way, new math makes no sense. But like seriously, no sense. I did math using touch points and they don't use touch points. And I don't know what this new math is, but it's not worth it.
New headache.
It's awful. I had to watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do subtraction.
Oh, no.
It was very weird. But,
but guys,
yes, Ticonderoga
pencils. Do not, I know they're cute. I know there's cute designs. I get it.
She was using a Lisa Frank one and the eraser was so bad.
Okay, either do that.
It was so bad.
Or just get the Bic mechanical. Their erasers are great. Okay.
Oh, I like the Papermate mechanical.
Yeah, Papermate. Yeah,
those are the best.
Yeah, those are good too.
That look like a pencil. I like those.
Yeah, those are good too. Guys, don't waste your money.
No, you
on
will
any
waste
others.
Money. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
true.
Here you go.
April 12th, the first billiard championship was held in Detroit with Michael J. Phelan. Phelan. Phelan.
Oh, so he wasn't like a bad guy.
Yeah, he was the winner. April 14th, abolitionist John Brown. Remember him from a few episodes ago?
John Brown.
He met Harriet Tubman at the Constitutional Convention convened in Chatham, Ontario.
She's a pretty amazing woman.
She is. And remember he did have some good in him. He did have a house. He helped a lot of people on the Underground Railroad. Still not a great person.
You can have good and bad in you.
Exactly. May 11th, Minnesota was admitted as the 32nd U.S. state.
You didn't say that correctly.
Minnesota.
There you go.
June 16th, Abraham Lincoln said his famous quote, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," and he accepted the Illinois Republican Party's nomination for the Senate.
I'm glad he did that.
July 6th, Lyman Blake patented the shoe manufacturing machine.
Well, thank you.
July 20th, admission to a baseball game was charged for the first time. How much do you think that was?
Penny.
50 cents.
Oh, I undershot it.
Yep. August 2nd, the first mailboxes were installed in Boston and New York City. So this is my question. You just found somebody randomly on the street. You're like, oh, Bill, I had some mail for you.
Well, now you said that they patented the street mailbox. So are those the ones that were installed?
That's, yes, from my understanding.
That's what I'm saying. Like you said, the first mailboxes were installed. So was it the street mailboxes that were installed? From my understanding,
yes.
So then that would make sense.
They made them very quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, other people
so yeah, the door mailbox where they put it through your door. I could see that too. But yeah, so that's...
So they had like the mail slots in the doors already. Yeah. Or, you know, the little boxes, little
Fine
post
day
box.
Sunday.
Ha ha ha. Why is that? But, you know, they had a
there's
little...
no post on Sunday.
That's right. They had the little boxes like at the house and everything. But like this...
Street, yeah. Because they'd have to go up and, I mean, still. August 15th, regular mail to the Pacific coast began.
Not a specific
So it
coast.
was just kind of whenever they felt like, because remember the other case that we had?
Could get there.
The guy was like, no, I wrote a letter to my wife and family. And everybody's like, okay, that was 2 years ago. And then she was like, I just got it. Just kidding.
You know they used to mail babies. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Crazy.
I've seen that. There's some things that you can mail without having a thing. Did you know?
You can mail a potato.
Yes. Did you know that if you ever find a driver's license, if you put it in a mailbox, it'll get back to the person it's supposed to go to?
Yes, I did.
Let's see. Where was I? Oh, August 16th, U.S. President James Buchanan was inaugurated. The new transatlantic telegraph cable and exchanged greetings with Queen Victoria. However, a weak signal forced a shutdown of the service just a few weeks later.
But they knew it was possible, so they could troubleshoot and figure out what was next.
August 17th, the first bank opened in Hawaii. August 24th, the Richmond Daily Dispatch reported 90 African Americans, because people are garbage, were arrested for learning.
Oh, how dare they?
I told you, garbage.
Stop that learning. You stop that right now.
Stop learning.
Stop that.
Right.
You stop that right now.
It's not acceptable. How do you prevent? Anyways, September 1st.
Do not soak that in. Do not listen to these words. Don't remember. Pay attention to your surroundings. Stop learning. Stop.
It has to end, I tell you. September 1st. This hits a bit close. The Staten Island Quarantine War took place, which was a series of attacks on the New York Marine Hospital in Staten Island, known as the Quarantine. And at that time, the largest quarantine facility in the United States. It was a result of longstanding local opposition to several quarantine facilities on the island's east shore. During the attacks, arsonists set a large fire that destroyed the hospital compound. Though there were no deaths as a direct result of the attacks, the conflict serves as an important historical case study of the use of quarantines as a first response. Very interesting. I was like, that hits close. September 10th, John Holden hit the first ever recorded home run in baseball. September 14th, Fordyce Beals patented his 6-shooter revolver, which will be produced by E. Remington and Sons as the Remington Model 1858.
There you go.
October 26th, Hamilton Smith patented the rotary washing machine in Pittsburgh. We thank him for that every day. And speaking, how did I do this? I am so good. I'm so good at what I do.
You're also humble.
I'm just going to tell you. I'm very humble.
I love how humble
you know, it's difficult to keep it all in sometimes. October 28th, R.H. Macy & Co. opened its first store on 6th Avenue in NYC. What did I tell you? So good at what I do. I did not even remember that was in this episode. So there we go. And then November 17th, Denver was founded. Do you say Colorado or Colorado or Colorado?
Colorado.
You know it's Colorado.
Well, I don't know.
And so is, do you say it's Nevada, not Nevada?
I say Nevada.
I say Nevada too, and I say Colorado, but it's Colorado and Nevada.
Well, here's the thing. It's also Mobile, Alabama.
It's Mobile, yeah.
No matter what.
Mobile.
Yeah. When you put it in the GPS, it
Head
says
south towards Mobile, Alabama.
And you're like, no, it's Mobile.
It's Mobile, but thank you. Yeah, it's Nevada and Colorado. Which throws me off every time. But
guess what? I'm Southern.
I know. October 26th of 1858 is when our event takes place this week. The residents of West 30th Street were awoken by the screams of Elizabeth Carr, the servant of the Gouldy family, as she ran for help as Frank Gouldy was attempting to murder his entire family.
Oh, dear.
We are back in good old NYC for the 5th week in a row. And horrible murder is once again splashed across the pages of the papers.
I think we need to take a field trip to New York.
I think so too. We've covered a similar case to this one in a sense that it was a similar type of murder.
Sleepwalking.
No.
Darn it.
The family annihilator.
Oh.
This is one that is hard to comprehend. Historically, this phenomenon is one where the husband typically murders his entire... This is statistically...
Is it like the Purringtons?
Yes. So... Historically, this phenomenon is one where the husband murders his entire family for one reason or another, or he at least attempts to. The first time in ONUC history we saw this was the case of the Purrington family massacre. And I will say, I'll put this in here. This is statistically, and we will go through some statistics on the numbers of family annihilators. However, it is not always the husband of the family that is the family annihilator.
Correct.
But it is typically a male. So
Yes.
just to kind of wrap that in.
We're not painting a broad brush.
And
we're just looking at numbers.
Yeah, and we'll see that in today's episode for sure. But this is kind of like a good point for us to kind of bring this in a little bit because we've already talked about New York a lot. So I thought this would kind of be a good time for us to go into exactly what this classification of murder is. So Ranker.com compiled a list of the most infamous family annihilators. And interestingly, most of these killers were men in their 30s. The first that comes to mind by most people today is Chris Watts, who murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann, and their 2 daughters. This was super recent. This is actually one Leah might remember, but it was 2018. It was very recent. She did like the Thrive business through Facebook and stuff like that, and she was very involved. But
I try not to remember those things.
It was.
It makes me angry and sad.
Yeah, and we will have to go through a little bit of kind of deep into this psychology today. Not too deep. I kind of do keep it a little bit surface, but yes, if for some of you, if you are thinking of that case specifically, that was Chris Watts, and he's actually number 1 on the list on Ranker. And I think it's just because it's so recent.
More recent, yeah.
The next that I saw was Robert William Fisher, who murdered his family and set the house on fire before taking off and never being found. John List is also there. He murdered his family in their New Jersey mansion, which included his 84-year-old mother.
Oh.
That's it. We could keep going, but we are actually going to cover these at some point or another because they're very infamous. John List, that one's actually extremely interesting because it was a mansion, like a true mansion.
Oh, wow.
And the way that people, like, he called the kids' school and said that the kids wouldn't be in school anymore, like that, they were moving or whatever, and wasn't the case. But he left, like he ran after he did that. But he left all the lights on in the house, and he left like a stereo on in the house. And the way that the mail was piling up. So they noticed that. But the other way that the neighbors noticed is all the lights, like I said, were on in the house. They started burning out one by one. And they started noticing that like slowly the lights were going out in the house. And I mean, this was a house with a ballroom. This was a mansion of a house. And it was allegedly for money, but he had a Tiffany chandelier that he could have sold that was in the house that he did not do anything that would have solved all of their like money problems. But it was like, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's insane.
Pride takes
and we'll talk. We're
that.
About to go into that too. Surprisingly, this is actually a newer area of criminal psychology that hasn't been fully explored. There is an article on medium.com that goes into depth about the emergence of this field. Professor David Wilson said of family annihilators, quote, "They receive little attention as a separate category of killers, often treated like a spree or serial murderers, a view which presupposes traits such as the idea that the murderer snaps or that after killing their partner or children, the killer may force a standoff with police." So, do you know the difference between a spree killer and a serial murderer? Do you know what the difference is in those two?
One is planned, the other is not.
No. So a spree killing is when multiple people are killed in a series in a specific, like in a day. So
okay, and then a serial is
multiple people over a specific amount of time.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
School shootings, that's technically a spree shooting, even though it's a lot of murders, while you see Ted Bundy is a serial murderer because his took place over time. So that's the difference. And a serial murderer is specifically over 2 people. And I believe there's a number for spree killers as well, but I'm not sure what that exact number is. But just for people who don't know the difference in between those two things, there is a difference. So a lot of times they will categorize family annihilators into one of those 2 categories.
Yeah.
And they would technically be a spree killer because it happens all in a very short period of time. So studies have narrowed down the cause of these murders into 4 common areas: a breakdown in the family relationship and issues in getting access to the children, financial hardship, cultural honor killings, or mental illness. A study made in 2013 has showed that out of 71 family member cases, in 59 out of 71, the perpetrator was male, and 50% were between the ages of 30 and 40 years old when they commit the crime. So what I'm saying is you're safe. I am not. So be on the lookout. Just kidding. No, but so that's to say, like when I say these things, there is a stereotypical box that some of these do fit into.
Right.
The MO, which is the modus operandi, which is how they do the killing, in 32% of the cases was stabbing, and in 15% of the cases, carbon monoxide poisoning from the car was used. In 69% of these cases, the male murderer completed suicide after the murders. The BAU, which is the Behavioral Analysis Unit, has been able to narrow the profile of the murderer in most cases to a middle-aged man who is described by others as hard-working and loving, typically highly educated with a good job, and the breaking point is either due to paranoia, depression, or substance abuse. They most commonly have a personality disorder that has a hint of narcissistic tendencies or a dependence to their identity. So if anything were to attack that identity, then that's also a breaking point as well. In a study over all family annihilators, 95% of them in total are male. That's not in this 71 group that they looked at. This is overall historically 95% are male. The family annihilator falls into one of these 4 categories. First is the self-righteous killer. And this was just a really good quote from that really describes that well. Quote, this individual is in most cases the father who often blames others, especially the mother, for relationship issues or a breakup and for preventing him from having access to the children. He sees himself as the provider, and taking that away from him will make him dangerous. The main goal is to cause pain and suffering to their partners and are most likely to use the children in doing so. If you want to skip forward a couple of seconds, if there are other ears in the way, maybe do that now. They will often kill the children and leave the mother alive to extend the suffering and ensure the maximum amount of pain. In most cases, this type of family murder will contact the mother prior to the murders and inform her of what they are going to do. So that's the first category.
I can't imagine
of murders.
That's just evil to me.
Second, there is the disappointed killer who believes they were let down by those around them and that their family isn't good enough for them, and they must kill the family to regain their reputation. So that's the one that it's kind of tied to their identity as a person, and when that identity is kind of shattered of like, you've let me down or this has gone wrong, that's when that kind of comes into play here. Third, the anomic killer who sees the family as an extension of his economic success. And as soon as that status breaks down, the family isn't serving their use anymore, and they will remove the family since the family no longer serves a purpose in their eyes. Last, there is the paranoid killer who thinks their family is in immediate danger or in some type of threat, and they need to protect them, and murdering them is the form of protection. Most are unable to comprehend the line of thinking in this type of murder, and understandably so. This is why the cries of Elizabeth Carr were so jarring that night. Not only was a murder taking place, but someone was trying to murder the entire family.
Yes.
And it was not the father. So that is where this is a different kind of category. So what they were saying in our statistics that we were hearing is that most of the time it is a male, but as I said previously, it's not always the father of the house that does it. So we'll kind of be able to see this specific family annihilator. I think they fall into a specific category. If you kind of combine a couple of these categories, that's where this person kind of
and there's nothing that says that you can't combine.
Correct. Correct. Yes. There's a lot that kind of go across that line. So we're going to go into our case this week, and it starts with the Gouldy family. Francis Gouldy was a wealthy retired lumber merchant who lived with his wife, Jane, and 5 children in a 3-story house at 217 West 30th Street. Jane was actually his second wife and the mother of his 2 youngest children. The oldest were Francis Jr., known as Frank, Mary Eliza, and Nathaniel. Frank was described as, quote, a young man of unsteady habits, who often caused his father much annoyance in consequence of his wild and extravagant course of living. And it was a bit of surprise when he decided he was going to become a sailor. Frank quickly grew bored of life at sea and decided he was going to be a clerk at a local dry goods store. But of course, that wasn't quite what he wanted either. By 1858, Frank was living at his father's house and generally being a strain, financially, physically, and emotionally on the family as a whole. It was described as a, quote, habitual dissipation. I had to look up what dissipation meant. And that is the squandering of energy, money, and resources. So he was just like habitual, like a leech, like a habitual leech just on the family.
He was a poor little rich kid, and he just was bored and just...
Exactly. And just taking what he wanted.
Living off daddy's money.
Exactly. Frank was also known to be vengeful of others who slighted him and had quite the uncontrollable temper. The family thought there was some hope on the horizon when Frank mentioned that he wanted to go into business for himself. So Francis, his father, set up a bank account for his son Frank and deposited $50, which is about $1,800 today, into the account that was not supposed to be spent until Frank started the business. Do we think this happened?
Yeah.
No. Because Frank thought that this money was his. And one day he went into his father's desk and took $10. He took like a note to go to the bank to get $10. And he went, and it was said that he, quote, went on a frolic with this money.
Dear.
So this is what set off the events that took place on October 26th. Frank arrived back home that night around 10 p.m. when he was confronted by his father in regards to the money that was taken. Frank allegedly responded with, quote, which this is honestly creepy as all get out if this is what happened. He responded with, quote, a low, chuckling laugh full of moaning and fiendish wickedness.
Oh, that sounds
It's
creepy.
Very sinister. Yeah, Jane heard Francis and her stepson arguing in the front room of the house when a scuffle ensued. Frank burst into the master bedroom where Jane was and hit her several times in the head with a dull hatchet. She sat up in bed and tried to fight off Frank, but she fell to the floor. Frank went down the hall to his brother's rooms, but found them empty. When the young boys heard the attack on Jane, they ran to their father, Francis. Frank then ran through the house to find them and struck them both in the head with a hatchet. Elizabeth Carr and Joanna Murphy were both servants in the home who were upstairs in their living quarters for the night, because keep in mind, this is about 10 o'clock at night. They heard the cries coming from downstairs only to run into Frank holding a hatchet. He struck Joanna in the head, and as Joanna fell to the floor, Elizabeth was able to wrestle away the hatchet. Elizabeth ran back to her room with Frank chasing after her. She could hear him yelling down the corridor, quote, "Give me the hatchet, Lizzie. I do not wish to kill you. I only wish to escape."
I don't think that's true.
To break the tension here, I put, in the words of Maury Povich, the lie detector determined that was a lie. Frank got the hatchet back from Elizabeth and hit her in the head 3 times before running out of sight. Elizabeth heard a gunshot ring out through the house, and thinking Frank was shooting at her, she ran outside to call for help. Quote, "Help, help. Oh my God, Frank is murdering the whole family. Rouse the neighbors." But the cries weren't just coming from Elizabeth. Mary Eliza Goldie was hanging out of her bedroom window, crying for help as well. There's some conflicting evidence here. Mary had either seen Frank hit Joanna and she ran back into her room and locked the door, or she thought that the house was being that there were burglars in the house,
right?
And then she went to do it. There's 2 different stories.
Either way, bad things are happening.
Either way, yes. Neighbors came running to see what the commotion was all about, and soon after, several policemen arrived as well. They entered the Goldie home and found Jane at the foot of the stairs, bleeding from her head and calling for help. Francis was lying on the floor, not moving. They also found 11-year-old Nathan, 7-year-old Charlie, and then Joanna, who was one of the servants of the house. We'll go into more of this here. Thankfully, all were alive and semi-conscious.
Oh, good.
They approached the door of Frank's bedroom. Afraid of being attacked, they cautiously opened the door, and just a trigger warning here, to find Frank lying in his bed, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head at just 19 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
That morning, the events of the night were splashed across the pages of the paper, the most dramatic coming from the New York Herald. Quote, "Terrible and appalling tragedy, murder most foul and unnatural, parricide, fratricide, and suicide, a night of horrors." This was across the front of the paper.
Well, that's horrible.
And this is a little bit triggering here too. They were very salacious in their reporting. So I'll read through this, but just heads up. The article started out with, quote, "One of the most horrible and bloody tragedies ever enacted occurred at the dwelling of the house on number 27 West 30th Street on Tuesday night. A father, mother, 2 children, and 2 female domestics were butchered by a revengeful son who subsequently retired to his bedroom." This is where it's a bit rough, so skip forward if you need to. "And there ended his earthly career by blowing his brains out with a pistol."
I mean,
This was in the newspaper.
That's how you want to put that?
In the newspaper.
Ugh.
This is where my sources were conflicting with the end of the story. And I told y'all last episode that murder by gaslight in Dayton and Manhattan, they were going to kind of come head to head for a little bit. And I don't fully know which one is accurate, so I'm giving both of them. According to Murder by Gaslight, quote, "All of the victims were taken to the hospital in critical condition and for a while did not appear that any of them would survive, but gradually they recovered from their wounds and Miss Goldie, who was pregnant at the time of the attack, gave birth to a healthy baby. Only Elizabeth Carr, who had been most active in fighting off her attacker, succumbed. She had suffered a fractured skull and compression of the brain and appeared to be fully recovering comfortably, but on November 12th, her condition suddenly changed and she died 2 days later. But,
however,
Dayton and Manhattan said, quote, "The Herald reported the street in front of the house was crowded to suffocation with an eager and exited throng. All sorts of means were resorted to by the spectators with a view of gained admittance to the house. But as a general rule, few persons were admitted who had not some legitimate business within. Among those allowed in was P.H. Williams, who along with 6 other men were appointed on the spot as the on-site coroner's jury." We've talked about what that is. "The inquest was held in the basement, and the men heard the testimonies of the surviving victim, Jane, who was the mom or second wife, doctors, and the neighbor. Only 16-year-old Mary Elizabeth or Mary Eliza survived without being attacked."
Oof.
So it's unsure, but nowhere did it mention in that one that Jane was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's very confusing. I don't know who lived. I don't know who died.
Well, it just says she was the only one that wasn't attacked. Not that
exactly
the others didn't survive. So
exactly.
it's not really conflicting. It just doesn't.
Well,
tell
the other one says,
story.
Yeah, the other one says everybody survived and Elizabeth Carr was the only one that died.
Yeah.
It's very confusing as to what happened. But for there to say there was a coroner's inquest, typically that would mean, I mean, yes, there is one death, but with that death being a death by suicide, that wouldn't typically warrant a coroner's inquest. So that would typically mean that someone else did die, but we don't know who.
Didn't the dad?
No, because in the other one it said he was unmoving, but that he survived.
Oh.
So very confusing. While the end of this case isn't quite solid, one person decided to immortalize the murders.
Is there another song?
In song. The 30th Street Murder by the New York songwriter Henry S. Bacchus, better known as the Socrates Bard.
So great.
Yeah.
I always think that from Bill and Ted.
Yes. So here is that song. 2 episodes in a row that we get to end with a song.
So exciting.
"A tragic scene transpired of late, the true of which I will narrate. Ye muses touch your mournful liars. It has to be liars. The awful theme a bard inspires. The silver moon rolls bright and clear, but dreadful sounds salute my ear. In the lonely hour of solemn night, we are called to view a horrid sight. A youth had gone, his spirit fled, and he is numbered with the dead. A blooming son, his father's joy, did wickedly himself destroy. But first the father wounded sore, and then left him bleeding in his gore. Ah, pause and stop, a silent tear, for he would kill his mother dear. 2 brothers young, 2 servant girls, with brutal hands he at them hurls. A hatchet keen to take their lives, to kill them all, the wretch contrives. But wounded linger on the store, yet soon, alas, may be no more. Heart-rendering tale indeed to tell, horrific as the gates of hell. With pistol, skip forward if you would like. With pistol his own brains blowed out, 'tis done, alas, beyond a doubt. No more, poor youth, you'll join the glee of your youthful company, but in the pit of despair, of dark despair, forever grown in toppet there, a solemn warning to us all to watch lest we like Gouldy fall.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the 30th Street Murder. And this would not be the last murder, again, that this address would see, or the last self-inflicted death that this address would see.
Oh, that's very sad.
When I was reading the Dayton and Manhattan article, there was several years later, there was another murder in the house that was a familial murder. But as we see, this is a family annihilator, but not of the typical ones that we see now.
And I think also when you have a blended family, especially in that time, there could be a lot of
tension.
I was going to say angst, but tension, with there being a new mom coming in. Don't know what the situation was with the first wife.
She did die from what I could find. But yeah, I don't know anything about the family history.
Right. So, I mean, he could have some trauma from that feeds into his personality development. That, a lot of times the attitude of not caring is because you've walled that off because you've been hurt so deeply when you're young.
So what I can kind of gather from context clues is one of the sons they mentioned was Charlie, and Charlie was 7. They did not mention Charlie in the original group of 3 children from his first marriage. So they would have, at this point, been married for at least 7 years. We would, at least. So he would have been 12.
Yeah.
So we don't know if that's when they were married or if they were together before that, but we can kind of
how
assume
long between first mom and, I mean,
but with a wealthy man who owns a wealthy lumber company who needs his 3 children taken care of.
I mean, and this is just us kind of and 12 together.
And 12-year-old, that's the oldest.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's a lot to try and take in.
Absolutely. I'm trying to. I'm not excusing the behavior.
Right.
I'm just trying, I can see.
Trying to find a why.
Yeah. And especially being a boy, because, boys aren't supposed to have feelings, especially at that time, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying at that time, and so it's very easy to see him turning off the feelings, the caring, and you end up with he's not happy anywhere because he's not going to be happy. Which, he's just existing. He's not living because he's not allowing himself to enjoy anything. He doesn't have any highs or lows. It's just an existence. And then he's just done. He didn't care.
Yeah, it's
and that's sad.
It's very curious as to how things transpired here. And there's not at all a lot of information. A lot of information that I could find sourced was from newspapers. So that's probably why there's a lot of conflicting information because newspapers, we smack each other in the press and don't print retractions. We know that. People didn't correct when they printed things very often. So yeah, but it's very odd. It was a very odd snap.
Right. He's like,
in an
you're
instant.
cutting me off. you're
well,
not,
he even
you
just
know?
asked him about taking the $10.
Well, and I'm filling in holes here.
Exactly.
But I'm sure that Dad is like, look, you said you wanted to do this. You wanted to be a sailor. You tried that and you came home. You wanted to do this. You came home.
You were a clerk and then you quit that.
We've done this. We've done that. We've done this. We've done that. You're saying you want to start a business. I have given you this money. You are back at home. You're a leech. You have a bad attitude, which I'm sure he did. Now you've blatantly just come in and stolen from my desk, and I've given you an account, with money in it. Where's that money? Because it's not supposed to have even been spent.
So he would have had $40 left in the account after this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You've already spent the money that you weren't supposed to have spent. You've taken money out of my desk. I'm going to need you to be a man and account for what you've done. And, it may be the first time that Dad finally said, hey, enough's enough. You're not a little kid anymore.
Right.
And he was like, I'm done. Can't handle it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
It's just such a, and we of course know at this time too, like, if there were any traits of underlying mental health that were not previously shown, this would actually be right around the time that a lot of, I'll say, any psychological disorder is a major one, but major, like schizophrenia type level, this is that age when that would come out. So I don't know if that's a means for the erratic behavior. And I don't know if that's a part of it at all, but that's kind of in that same time frame too. So we don't know if that's a factor.
Well, and we also know that the frontal lobe is not all the way developed.
25 to 26.
Making, and so his decision making isn't all the way formed, and so he's going to be more off the cuff, So, I mean, there's a reason that it's more expensive to insure teenage boys.
And your father is already successful. He's retired by this point.
And you're in his shadow.
And you're at the age where you're supposed to be finding your own family. And you don't know what to do. And I mean, and that is a lot of pressure. And
especially when your dad was such a success and you're in his shadow. People are expecting this from you and you don't know what.
And you're the first child of that family to strike it out on your own.
You have his name.
There's pressure there too. Yeah, you literally have his name. So there's a lot there. There's a lot to this case. It's
sad.
It's very sad. The topic of family annihilators always, I won't say fascinates. It intrigues me. Because I was sitting and I was doing my research on this and I asked my boyfriend, I was like, you're a man. And he was like,
why, thank you for noticing.
Allegedly. And I was like, you're in your 30s. And he was like, for now, yes. And so, but I was saying like, I don't
check my license and make sure the birth date. Okay. Yes.
Yep.
So far, criteria.
Yes. I was like, so what? And I was asking him, I was like, that's not my lived experience. Like, I don't have that life experience, obviously. And I said, what? And I was trying to think of a way to best ask, like, as a self, I guess, identifying male in this world, living that experience, what in your 30s would make that a large defining time? Like, what makes, in your mind, your 30s like the end all be all of time in that mental sense? I was like, because that's just such a weird, I said, is it a quarter life crisis? Like, what are we going, what I was trying to genuinely think of, like, why is that such a time frame that's being very much like sussed out at this point. And one thing he said, he's like, well, you know, obviously, like, I can't speak to what some people in these situations are going through. But he was saying, you know, in the society that we live in and in the type of world that we live in, like, yes, things are changing, things are getting better, things are, you know, mental health is, you know,
yes,
is much larger of a topic than it used to be. But, you know, he was saying,
accepted.
yeah, he was saying there's still a lot of pressure put on men in society to have achieved what you need to achieve by that time frame. And he was saying, you know, himself and his, like, I won't go into his, like, story. His story is his story, but like in things that have gone on in his life, he's like, yeah, it is difficult when things in your life fall apart in your 30s. And you think that this was the time, your 30s were the time that you were kind of drilled into your head. This is the time that I should have it all together.
Right.
And he was like, you know, there's pressure in your 20s, but your 20s, you're still figuring things out. And you have some seeming grace there to figure it out. But he's, you know, and that was what he was saying. And I said, it does make a lot of sense because, I mean, just in general, a lot of people think that by your mid 30s, you should have everything figured out. Like, you should be.
I messed up then.
You know, like, they're saying you should know where you are. Like, this is the time.
There's still settings on my washing machine. I have no idea what they're for.
You know,
I'm just saying
there's a lot of things in my house that clean things that I didn't know needed to be cleaned. So, you know, and that was one thing he was saying is he was like, there is, you know, regardless of gender roles in society, and like we can go through a whole backlog topic of that all day, which is, I mean, a lot of that we've discussed before is very frustrating in the sense that like everybody has mental health issues, and just because you identify as a certain gender or you are, you know, whatever your belief cycle of that may be, there's still a stigma that can come along with that.
Sure.
And, you know, that can be placed on you. And it was just very interesting because he's like, I can see, you know, because like Chris Watts was in his 30s and had a wife, 2 daughters and a son on the way. And he, you know, it was a very weird relationship. There's a lot there. There's podcasts upon podcasts about it already. So, that can go into all of it for you. But his was a, I want to start my life over and I don't see another way out. Which was a lie. There were plenty of ways out. Right. Like that just isn't.
Sometimes that you get tunnel vision.
Yeah. And I get that tunnel vision, and, you know, but that was something that we were discussing is just because one thing he said, my boyfriend, he said, I could never imagine ever imagine doing that to someone else. Yeah. He was saying, my child, like he was thinking, cause you know, he has a son, and he was saying like, I could never imagine that. Like, and he said, and I don't know. And that was the part that he was like, so that I can't speak to, obviously. Yeah, but he was like, I don't
in
know.
That place, in that frame of mind.
Yeah. He was like, I don't know what part of your brain turns off to move to that perspective that you're okay doing that. And he was like, and I can see, you know, sometimes, because we've talked before about, and you and I think have talked about this before too, where you zone out and you don't like driving. Yeah. Back before in the house that I lived in previously to this, I could drive from work to home and not really remember driving home just from zoning out. And I knew that drive so easily. And so that was one thing that we kind of touched on. Is like, is it like that?
Well, where and with the Purrington case, we wondered if you know, he had the Bible open.
Yeah, his was
and he felt like he was
a money thing. Yeah, we talked a lot about that. His was a money.
His was a shame.
Yep.
And, yeah. Well, and we talked about my boss, not your former boss.
Yes.
Went to a convention, and they were talking about. It's a different workforce now than it used to be. Used to,
which I personally think is a good thing, but
well, I mean,
I think the changes have been for the better in a lot of senses.
Well, and it's good to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, people that are retiring now and who have recently retired, they grew up like, the 80s is really when both parents started working, really, that it started being accepted. It wasn't well, your mom works too, because it used to be dad was the breadwinner and mom stayed home. If the mom worked, that was an anomaly,
right.
And the man identified himself. His identity was his job.
Right.
That was his identity. And we've moved away from that now. And so it's a very big change. But even back then, from the case that we were just talking about, that was still the same
still
thing.
The same.
That's your identity. Your identity was your success.
Yes. And if you have no success,
then
you have nothing to identify with.
Exactly. Well, you're just waiting to inherit your dad's money.
Exactly.
And that's all you are.
Right.
And that, so there's that pressure on him as well. Whereas today there's so many other things, you realize there are more facets to people, but that, and I thought that was very interesting. The fact that, you're right. That's how it was, because that's what, and the society and the, even the, economy lent itself to one income household, but it's not that way anymore. Right. So, that's not your identity,
right?
And I find that interesting. The psychology of that is very interesting.
It is very interesting in that sense. And yes, like a lot of things have changed, and not even then in this generation, because you're not.
It's been
you're not millennial.
Gradual.
What are you? You're Gen
I'm a Gen X.
X.
Like I'm between millennial and like I'm a mix.
my boyfriend is what they call a zennial, where he's right on the
I'm on the
cusp
of the two.
He's
right
closer
there.
to millennial than he is, but he has a lot of traits from Gen X.
I have traits of both.
And so
I'm
fully millennial. Like
yes, you are.
I'm a full millennial in that sense. And I think it's a very interesting shift in things. And there has been a lot of change in the workforce as certain generations are getting older and have different goals in their life, that there's not the pressure to go to college, graduate, get married, start a family. Like that used to kind of be the rule, the quote rule book is like, this is where you should be in life. And I think that a lot of that has changed so much that I saw something the other day that said like, having a pet is the new having a child, having a plant is having a new pet. And like, so it was all these different things of like, this is kind of how things have, like, kids are now this exotic pet that like people like have, because a lot of people that I know have waited until they were older to have children and like
don't look at me, I'm not having
right. But like didn't have children young. And then two, you take a workforce that has shifted their priorities as far as wanting to travel more, wanting to do these other things in life. And then you combine that with a pandemic that shut the entire world down and shifted the entire workforce away from an office.
Yeah.
And now you have truly the millennials' ideal workspace where it doesn't matter where I am, I can work. And it was so odd to me. I think I told you about this. There was a while back, there was a coworker of mine that was moving. I was like, oh, where are you moving to? Like thinking like down the road. And they were moving like 3 states away. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And then all of a sudden, that was the time that it hit me that I was like, oh,
it doesn't matter.
I can live anywhere that I want. And it's such a change. And I think because now kind of the workforce that we have, it truly is like the millennials' ideal workplace, because a lot of us now have I fully work from home.
As long as you have Wi-Fi, you're good to go.
Yeah, my offices are in Texas, so I go to there a couple times a year. But I mean, truly, if I'm, if I have internet, I'm good.
And my husband works from home.
Exactly, and having that's such an interesting shift in perspective, but also you're now getting millennials as bosses, which is I told you about this shift that I've experienced this year that was very eye-opening, because I do have bosses that are super concerned, and not to say others aren't, but they are hyper aware of my mental health and of how much time I'm taking off work, and am I taking off work, and am I going on vacation, and am I, like I told you, I got a survey one day that was like, do you feel when you're done with work for the day that you still have mental energy to spend time with your family and friends? Like that's just not really something that I think a lot of people are used to in the traditional work environment that we've been in for a while. I think that a lot of people were more used to, which like you're kind of still in that where like, I don't have time off. Mine's unlimited. I can take vacation whenever I want. Yeah. You, like the other day you were saying, oh, I have this many days. Like, and it was very weird. It was kind of a weird moment for me where I was like, I mean, I could take off. Like I work with people who recently have taken off like pretty much a month of work to get married and go on their honeymoon. And it's just very weird to me that they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's no big deal. We're just going to take off.
We can just do that.
Yeah, it's fine. We don't need you. Like we're good. And I go, like I'm out of the office right now technically because I took a few days off just like for a mental staycation. Yeah. And I didn't have to like forewarn anyone for anything. I just kind of like took time off, and it was very odd.
Well, but the nature of your job has changed too. I mean, I have to be available for unexpected phone calls and that sort of thing too. But I mean, all companies, even with my kind of job, you can do that. But
the shift from being in an environment where, it's just very different. I encourage anyone who has thought about a change to do
investigate it.
It's been very good for me personally. Just having that difference, it's been very good for me in a lot of ways. But it's been really good, and my boyfriend lovingly reminds me a lot that it was his idea. So yeah, I get that a lot.
Shut your face, shut your face.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's all interesting. The world is such a interesting place. So many days, and I hope that all of you will have a nice Thanksgiving. If you don't want to talk to family, we have a really nice backlog of episodes if you want to just listen to those. And hey, you have long hair, good AirPod, good Beats Pro, not sponsored. But we're looking for sponsors.
Absolutely.
Put that in, and you can just look really involved in a conversation, and you're not even listening, and you just have us in your ears, and that's what that's about. You can
talk back to us. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll accept it. And if
we won't answer you,
and we always talk about this around the holiday times, especially just I'm hyper aware of it as a person with very little family. If you're not,
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, if you're not spending Thanksgiving with people, that's fine too. Like, enjoy your time for yourself. If you have your own made family, like your family, your friends are your family, your family, your chosen family. If that's who you're spending your Thanksgiving with, then I hope you are.
I hope you're spending your day with people that
you love and who love you.
Yes.
Do that for yourself. We highly recommend it. But While you're doing that, you can go follow us everywhere on our social medias. You can become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/OneNationUnderCrime.
We would love that.
It would be great. Go leave us a 5-star review while you're obviously ignoring your family for Thanksgiving because you don't want to be there.
Some of them need to be ignored. Let's just go ahead and say it.
You can divorce your family. And
well, you sometimes your phone needs to ring or whatever. I mean, sometimes it happens.
Sometimes you need to look busy, and you can look busy by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Boom, boom. Claire agrees. You might have heard her in the background.
That was an amen, sister.
Yeah. I don't know. So we will see you guys here next week, same time.
Different crime.
And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all, especially when the newspapers are like they're wilding out on one. Let me tell you,
really crude. But hey, go put up your Christmas tree now. You're allowed.
Yeah. We will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.